Long before the world was torn into different lands, races, and tribes, all of humanity lived as one under the same vast sky. Many know the legend of the Witcher, but the true story began long before history was written, and the hero was not named Geralt. His name was Orak. Before there was Africa, Europe, America, Asia, and other continent, before the great land masses drifted across the seas, humanity knew only one world. It was called Athera, the first Earth. Athera was a sweeping, golden land of endless forests, towering mountains, and seas of silver mist. In this time, the lifeblood of the world was magic. It was not a skill to be learned, but a simple, pulsing force of nature. The wind knew names, and the rivers held the memories of souls. Humans lived among the spirit beings and the gods, some gentle, others fierce. Alongside them were the elves, and a multitude of strange animals now long forgotten. Yet, even in this perfect order, there were also monsters, wild beasts that posed a threat to life. But the gods, the powerful sorcerers, and the very magic that ruled Athera kept everything in balance. The legend of the Witcher was not born in the castles of men. It began in Athera, when the world was one, and the first humans had to forge light into their own blood to fight the rising darkness. In Athera, a young princess named Amirah fell deeply and secretly in love with a powerful god named Ravian. Their passion violated the primal law of the land, that the spirit beings must not share mutual, deep feeling with mortals. From this reckless love, an extraordinary new being was conceived. One day, to the shock of all, Princess Amirah suddenly went into labor. There had been no signs of pregnancy, no movement within her. The entire incident was a profound mystery to her and her people. From her womb came a boy child whose appearance was a perfect blend of spirit and human. It was a birth that defied the rules of the entire world. A mortal woman could not bear a child of a god. The Queen Mother, knowing the severe consequences of her daughter's forbidden love, kept the entire birth a profound secret. Long before this, an ancient prophecy had been foretold. A being born of a spirit and a human would arrive. This child would possess a divine power that would surpass both the gods and humanity itself, and was said to be forged of darkness and light, a future judge of good and evil. The gods, fearing a power they could not control, refused to accept the child and immediately sought to destroy the child. But the father, Ravian, protected his son with all his divine strength. Along with Princess Amirah, Ravian secretly fled the land of Athera, taking the mysterious child to a faraway, hidden place.
For many days and nights, the small family, Ravian, Amirah, and the infant Orak, traveled through endless forests and over great mountains. They finally settled in a small, distant village in a remote land called Zamora. Here, they built a new, fragile life. The boy was named Orak. His father, Ravian, was fiercely protective and began to teach his son how to defend himself. Ravian often spoke of a looming future threat, urging Orak to be prepared, though the boy did not yet understand the weight of these warnings. Ravian feared the day he would no longer be there, and what forces might then come for his son. 7 years passed. In the same mysterious, sudden way as before, Princess Amirah conceived and went into labor again. This time, however, fate was cruel. With the last ounce of her energy, she delivered a daughter, named Amirah, but shortly after, Amirah died. Ravian was broken by this loss. Amirah was born different. She had striking blue eyes, snow-white hair, and an extraordinary beauty that mirrored her mother's fair complexion. Her brother Orak, like his father, was dark-skinned. Despite their differences, Orak felt an immediate, strong bond with his sister and cared for her whenever their father was away. 20 years went by. Orak had grown strong, learning the arts of fighting and the sword from his father. Ravian taught him only a small amount of magic, fearing to unleash Orak's true, divine potential and insisting that the boy rely first on his physical strength. One quiet afternoon, Orak and Amirah were playing in the nearby woods when the air tore open. A sinister dark portal materialized, and from it emerged two strange, monstrous beasts. Orak did not flee. Instead, He quickly cast a cloaking spell over his terrified sister, shielding her from sight, and turned to face the creatures. He fought bravely, engaging the beasts with only his hands and fierce will. Ravian, feeling the distant surge of danger, rushed toward his children. When he arrived, he was instantly impressed to see his son successfully holding his own against the monsters. Ravian shouted his son's name and threw him a sword. Orak snatched the weapon and used it to slay the two beasts. Ravian proudly uncloaked Amirah, but as they prepared to leave, the fallen monsters regenerated, their bodies reforming to attack again. Ravian stepped forward to defend his children with his godly power. He quickly cast a spell to empower Orak's sword, then struck the monsters with the weapon himself. This time, the beasts did not regenerate. They immediately faded and vanished into dust. Though the children were safe, Ravian's deepest fear had been realized. The gods were beginning their hunt. Ravian forged a sword of power for Orak, binding his own blood and divine strength into the steel. He merged a piece of his own soul into the weapon, a final sacrifice. He commanded Orak to always watch over Amirah and protect her at all costs. He told his son that one day, he would understand that his sister was his destiny. It was not long before the next attack came. This time, it was the Dark Knights, the most feared force in the world, the supreme warriors of the gods. They were sent to destroy the two children and drag Ravian back to face his punishment. That evening, as the sun began to set, the family was sharing a quiet moment when three dark portals violently opened near them. Ravian was terrified. He shouted Orak's name, commanding him to take his sister and run. Orak grabbed his powerful sword, held Amirah by the wrist, and fled into the woods without looking back. The Dark Knights pursued them, but Ravian fought them with desperate fury, a single god against three super godly warriors. As the knights began to overpower him, binding him with the divine chains of the gods, Ravian summoned his final, exhausting strength. He tore open a final, shimmering portal. Run through the portal, Ravian screamed to his children. You will be safe. His final, ragged breath was a desperate command. Remember Orak, remember. She is your destiny. As the Dark Knights moved to follow the children, Ravian used the last of his fading power to close the portal. It snapped shut just moments before the warriors reached it, sealing Orak and Amirah into the unknown.
The shimmering portal spat Orak and his terrified sister, Amirah, into a secluded forest grove. They found themselves at a hidden temple, the home of a supreme sorceress and keeper of the old ways. The sorceress greeted them, her presence radiating safety. She told them they were secure and that their father, Ravian, had prepared this sanctuary for them immediately after their births, trusting only her. The sorceress explained that she and Ravian had been friends for an age, and that they had nothing to fear. She then unveiled the secret Ravian had desperately shielded from his son, a truth he had kept hidden to try and grant them a normal life, free from the shadow of war. Orak, now armed with questions, learned of the ancient prophecy. Amirah, his little sister, was the key that could destroy the world. She possessed the highest form of primal power within her, and if that power were exposed or triggered, its uncontrolled wrath could bring about global destruction. Orak, conversely, was destined to be the balance, the one meant to hold her back and protect her from herself. The sorceress revealed the truth of their miraculous births. They were bound by the divine womb. No mortal woman could bear a child of a god, but their mother's womb was the prophesied vessel. Orak finally understood his father's desperate warnings and the attacks they had endured. His was now a sacred task, to be Amirah's keeper, protecting her at all costs. He learned why the gods hunted them. The majority sought Amirah's death, fearing her power. But a faction of wild gods sought to capture her alive, believing she held the key to awakening Azhun, the god of chaos, who was eternally bound in a hellish prison. They believed Azhun's release would grant them dominion over the earth. All these forces, great and terrifying, wanted the innocent little girl. Orak, looking at his broken-hearted sister, resolved deep within him that nothing would ever touch her. Orak began a tireless regime. He studied the powerful, forgotten grimoires of the ancient witch. He trained relentlessly, day and night, transforming his grief and fear into pure focus. He missed his father, but channeled that pain into becoming the strength his little sister needed. One day, Orak was led to a remote mountain peak where he met a legendary swordsman, a warrior who had faced and defeated the terrifying Dark Knights of the gods. This master taught Orak a new, brutal form of combat, revealing the precise weak points and movements needed to defeat the supreme warriors. It was soon after his training was complete that the sorceress revealed a grim truth: they had been discovered. It was time to leave. She directed them toward a mystical sanctuary, the only place she knew where they would be fully safe, guided, and where Amirah might be taught to control her and use power. The place was the hidden realm of Eldoria. Eldoria was not just a kingdom, but a land of living crystal and whispered light. It was protected by an invisible, powerful barrier woven from pure Atheran light that repelled and diffused all divine and chaotic magic. The wild gods and the dark knights could not dominate this land. Their strength simply bled away in its presence. The sorceress gave Orak a sacred obsidian compass, the only item that would serve as their access and passkey into the glorious kingdom. Orak took the compass and set out with his sister.
The journey was a gauntlet of fear and struggle. Deep within the Thornwood Mire, Orak and Amirah were ambushed by a pack of grotesque, mutated beasts, the forgotten spawn of the First Conjunction. As the beasts circled, a shimmering blue wave of light erupted from Amirah's hands, not a deliberate attack, but a panicked defense that sent the creatures shrieking away. Orak realized that his sister's power was instinctively tied to her fear. The next challenge was the relentless pursuit of the Dark Knights. In a blasted valley of ash and shadow, they finally cornered the siblings. Orak drew his father's sword of power and faced the three warriors alone. The battle was a blinding clash of steel and divine force. Orak fought with the skill of his new master, deflecting blows that could shatter mountains. The knights, realizing they could not simply defeat him, shifted their focus. Two held Orak fast, while the third lunged toward Amirah. In that desperate, heart-stopping instant, Orak felt a primal rage erupt. His eyes flashed with a gold that had never been there before. He discovered his new ability. With an impossible surge of speed and strength, a gift of his forgotten divine heritage, Orak shattered the bounding chains holding him. He slammed his sword hilt into the chest of the knight reaching for Amirah, sending the warrior reeling. The knights, stunned by this new, terrifying ability, were momentarily broken. Orak pressed his advantage, using the precise tactics he had learned to defeat and banish two of the knights into dust. The respite was brief. Just as they neared the protective boundary of Eldoria, they were attacked by the wild gods themselves, led by their most fearsome champion. This time, the battle was not just for the children, but for the very soul of the earth. Orak fought with divine power and mortal fury, but the power of a god was too great. The wild gods, weary of the fight, decided to end it. They flung their divine bounding chains at Orak, securing him completely. The chains tightened, suppressing his strength and leaving him helpless. A portal opened near Amirah, and a wild god chieftain advanced on the girl, drawing a wicked, obsidian blade. The sorceress's protective magic cloak surrounding Amirah instantly dissolved under the overwhelming pressure of the god's power. The god raised his blade to strike the innocent girl. In that final, fatal moment, Amirah's deepest fear was triggered. Her body and soul, pushed to the absolute edge, broke the seal of her destiny. A wave of catastrophic, silent energy erupted from her, a brilliant cascade of pure, unrestrained power. The force surged across the valley floor, striking the wild gods and the remaining Dark Knight. They did not fall. They simply vaporized, their divine forms reduced to fine, shimmering dust. But the power did not stop. It kept flowing, threatening to consume the very trees around them. Orak, though still bound by the chains, found his voice. "Amirah," he cried out, his voice full of love and desperation. "Stop. Remember, you are light, not shadow. You are my sister, the heart of our father's love. Come back to me, Amirah. Please come back." His voice, the voice of her protector and keeper, reached her. Her eyes, glowing with world-ending light, slowly returned to their natural blue. The raging energy receded, leaving the landscape silent and scarred. Orak, his chains slackening, rushed to her side. They walked the final steps together, crossing the invisible boundary into Eldoria. They were greeted by the golden light of the living city and accepted into the safe harbor, finally shielded from all those who sought to use or destroy them. Orak's journey had ended, and his true destiny, the protection of the world through the safeguarding of his sister, had only just begun.